So we're talking today about Q-SYS interoperability.
That's right.
Which I've very recently learned a lot about very quickly. Can you start by, I mean, this is huge for us, it's huge for our customers. Can you tell us, first of all, before we get into the details of what it actually is and what the benefits are, how this came about? Because I hear that this came about, as most things do with our initiatives, from collaboration with the customer, right? It came from an issue, I believe.
Yeah, so Q-SYS Interoperability has been planned for probably now a year and a half. It actually originated from an outage. So a certain technician in a specific environment patched a Q-SYS core to the wrong production network switch, which allowed the Q-SYS core to effectively storm the entire network. And it resulted in a lot of BTP v2 and master clock conflicts, which effectively resulted in an outage across an entire environment, probably about 50 Q-SYS cores. There was no audio. And so we had an entire team troubleshoot that.
Wow.
And it was very hard to troubleshoot because each server or Q-SYS core, as you know, has local logs on it. And so we had to evaluate each log separately. The logs were restricted to about 3 to 6 days. And so we learned a lot from that outage and how hard it is to troubleshoot such an outage.
Yeah.
And so that's where it came from. So it came from a real world problem.
So like most of our issues
Absolutely.
do, or most of our initiatives do. So a couple of things on that that I just picked up on. So 6 days of logs. So that's significant. Why? Is that because you can't properly troubleshoot and fault find if you've got no history? Is it as simple as that? Or?
Well, that's right. Like this outage specifically that I'm speaking about wasn't like a switch on, switch off. It was it started at first limited parameter and it just kept expanding. Right. And so it went on for about 8 days.
Wow.
And so when we started looking back effectively to find the culprit Q-SYS core, it was very hard because we had to look at every log and try to cross-correlate between each separate local log to understand where the traffic is coming from and where the problem is coming from. As you might expect, when you're working at that scale, it's very challenging.
Yeah.
And so, it was very hard to look at local logs up to 6 days when probably the incident started 8 days ago.
Right, yeah.
And it was also hard to pinpoint where the problem originated from.
You're working in the blind and making a lot of assumptions. So, and that's because there's no integration. So I'm just trying to understand why that's a gap, right? So there's no integration with Q-SYS. Is this, was this known? I mean, was it a surprise, or was it something, the industry kind of is just aware of because there's no integration with the Q-SYS ecosystem, that you would expect those things to just be a problem at some point? Like, is this discovery, I guess, we're talking about?
I think it was discovery for us. Good question. I think it was discovery for us. It definitely caught us by surprise. I think when you have a Q-SYS ecosystem that is end-to-end Q-SYS, then maybe it's easier or identified easier. But as you know, most environments out there are not just one ecosystem for one manufacturer. This environment I'm speaking of is built based on multiple manufacturers like Crestron, Panasonic, Microsoft Teams, Dreams, Zoom Rooms, and Q-SYS and other manufacturers. And so for you to manage all of that and be able to troubleshoot across all these many different manufacturers is definitely very challenging.
It's huge. So I'm clear as well, we've just released Q-SYS, what we're calling Q-SYS Interoperability. But this is a long time in the bake. So when was this incident? Was it a couple of years ago?
So that would have been a year and a half, a bit more than that. Yeah. So, and also we did have a Q-SYS Interoperability release earlier in the year.
Yeah.
It was a light one. It was us kind of pushing it out to production and kind of optimizing it and learn from it so that we can enrich it. So this is the actual big release. And this one has a lot of features, as you might have seen.
Yeah.
So, logging is one of them, but it's got very strong interoperability with the Q-SYS ecosystem now. So
what happened from there? Because I'm interested in how initiatives get kicked off as well. So did you and the engineering team immediately go, okay, this is big. we need to kick a project off here. And then how did that work with the customer? Because obviously you're still dealing with an issue,
Yeah.
but then you're going into innovation mode and problem solving mode, and it affects our roadmap.
Yeah, I think first we went into anxiety mode because we needed to save the environment. So for the first 9 days, it was running around and sorting out problems and kind of bringing the environment back up. But once it was up and we were back in kind of normal mode, then there was eventually a PIR where we all meet and discuss what happened and how can we do better, including the customer in the room. And so from the PIR, there was a lot of lessons learned. And then from the lessons learned, the initiative was born. The initiative obviously grew to a lot more than just identifying whether you have a master clock collision or PTPV2, but that's where it started from. Eventually, it became a feature. The feature grew into multiple different areas, mainly to do with visibility, observability, manageability, alerting and notifications, and also configuration management, automated configuration management. So lots of value there, but initially it started from an outage.
So what exactly are the benefits then of this initiative that we've just rolled out?
Yeah, so like everything in the AV industry, with environments that are multi-vendor, it's hard to get this all-encompassing kind of view. And Q-SYS is certainly part of that, where if you have a full Q-SYS ecosystem, you might be okay. But if you have multiple vendors, then it becomes very hard to get visibility and observability and management of Q-SYS. This release allows you to do all of that. So on top of the logging that we spoke about and the event logging and capturing anomalies as they go and pinpointing where the problem is, we extended log retention to 365 days.
Wow.
And we centralized them. So now you can do queries across all logs of all of your Q-SYS scores from one place and cross-correlate between all of them, so that if you have any type of issue, then you can very quickly pinpoint that. But that's only part of the benefits.
Yeah.
Other parts are, as you know, the Q-SYS ecosystems, they have multiple different peripherals and endpoints behind Q-SYS cores, such as cameras, amplifiers, speakers, and more. They were hard to discover. With Innomesh now, you can actually discover all of these peripherals. So anything that your Q-SYS core sees, Innomesh now will see. It will unify it in an asset registry, and the asset registry will be a full Q-SYS asset registry, but also a Crestron and an Extron and an AMX and a Microsoft Teams and Zoom Room asset registry all in one view, where you can track your assets, manage them, and monitor them.
So I was going to ask about challenges, but I think it's probably obvious what the challenges are that you're overcoming or we're overcoming for customers. Is there anything that's not immediately obvious, though, in terms of a challenge? I mean, obviously, we've got richer audit logs now. You talked to me the other day about automation. So, to be clear, I guess, for customers, there's no additional manual step. We haven't impacted customers and given them more workload, right? It's automating.
Yeah, so I guess if I wanted to summarize this feature, I mean, we talked about logging and centralizing the logs and being able to query them all globally from one place. I guess the second thing is visibility and observability, so you're able to see all of them from one place. But the next thing is automating the configuration management. As you know, in AV, there's a lot of devices, and so a lot of change happens across the field and runtime. And so how do you make sure that your archives in terms of Q-SYS configuration files or any configuration files are actually up to date?
Right.
Innomesh now regularly reaches out to all of the Q-SYS scores, backs them up, and basically archives them in repositories up to unlimited versions. So every time there's a change, we grab the change and we file it automatically. You don't even need to stress about that. No. If you need to recover back to a certain version, we've got all the versions.
Okay, so beyond the logs, there's a lot of extremely powerful data at play here. So what are the other benefits? What's the additional value we've got in those in that data in terms of insights, metrics, measurements? What else is it doing now?
Yeah, so beyond logs and events, you get metrics with us all the time. You've got global metrics and you got asset-specific metrics. Right. Metrics are effectively transforming the data into valuable measures that you can utilize for business decisions or even performance tracking. So now with every Q-SYS score and every peripheral, we track CPU, memory, disk usage, modes, events like when people plug into the core and USB, etc. So there's a lot of metrics. You get them from a global view of all the cores. You also get them specific asset view so that you can see how well a specific core is behaving and how much is actually being utilized and whether it's actually being overutilized so that you can plan on an upgrade or even reducing the load on it. All of those come in the form of dashboards and obviously they are an outcome of data. On top of that, you also get really good visibility over your networking connectivity in terms of metrics as well. So you get a lot of multicast metrics, you get network connectivity metrics, which ports are open on the core, which ports are closed, what services are enabled. That also helps with security and manageability.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so you mentioned events beyond logs. So why are they actually beneficial, those events, just beyond the logging?
Yeah, so if you can imagine, if you have a big environment of, say, 100 Q-SYS cores, Q-SYS cores are effectively servers. And so how do you know when someone makes a change on the server without you knowing? And so when you're tracking events and you overlay notifications on top of events, now you can get a notification when you have someone logging into your core or someone pushing a file to your core and making changes on the core. You can get events when there's a master clock collision or a PTV2 problem. And so events and notifications overlaid on that provide you a much more instant or immediate, observability straight into your live messaging platforms like Slack and Microsoft Teams.
Oh, right. So it's fully end-to-end. So you're getting the same level of Slack or Teams notifications for everything. I guess that's custom as well. That's tailored. If you don't want all of the notifications, you can tailor or...
Yeah, so I mean, if you can definitely get verbose and you can get a much more summarized view, but effectively it's straight to your day-to-day tool sets, which everyone these days either use Microsoft Teams or Slack or Zoom Messenger. So all of those are supported. And so when there's a specific event on a specific core, let's just say simply someone trying to authenticate to a core, and then we detect an authentication event. That event, we basically detect it as a meaningful event. And so we provide you an immediate notification telling you that this core and this building in this room is being authenticated to or badly authenticated to, whether there's a bad actor. And that is an immediate thing.
Gotcha.
On top of all of that, as you know, everything in Innomesh, including Q-SYS now and all the endpoints and peripherals behind the cores are unified in a hot list. And
I was just going to ask,
So now you get effectively alerting across your entire AV environment. So that includes, again, Crestron, AMX, Extron, every other device, Panasonic, Sony, etc. All of our drivers are out there. But on top of that, you get the Q-SYS cores and everything that the Q-SYS core can see. So that's down to the camera, the speaker, the amplifier, and effectively every Q-SYS endpoint out there is unified in this hot list. So if there's a problem with a specific peripheral that is connected to a core, we will see it in our hot list.
But another fairly significant leap towards full, true agnosticity. Right?
Absolutely.
That felt like one of the last gaps there.
And unification.
Unification, yeah. We're almost there. Or are we there? I mean, what else is left?
There's always more challenges. This is an industry that continuously evolves and there's always new technologies. So I think that we are mostly there in terms of enterprise grade stuff, but there is always new stuff that we need to incorporate. So. And as you know, Innomesh is evergreen, so we are always supporting more and more devices and technologies, and that typically happens by the market, driven by the market.
So a year and a half ago was the outage that led to all of this, and here we are now, a year and a half later. Q-SYS Interoperability is live in Innomesh. It's got to be a significant cost and impact to the team, and it must have been a huge investment. So who's paying for that? Is it us? Is it our customers? What's the impact?
So as you might expect, it's been an evolution. So it has been a year and a half, and we had multiple releases and lots of R&D. And the cost is not just in building it; it's also in continuously maintaining it and hosting it. So when you're talking about holding data for 365 days across all of your Q-SYS cores, which are effectively Linux servers, that's a lot of data. And so the cost on us is not, negligible. It's serious. The cost on our customers is nothing. Right. It's part of the platform. It's free of charge. If you are on our middle subscription tier or high subscription tier, you get Q-SYS Interoperability at no additional charge. Right. So if you're on site or space, it's part of your service. It's part of our evergreen commitment. You just get it.
Wow. So what was the the thinking behind that decision to I guess swallow that cost? Was it just because, I mean, I know the answer because I work we're an innovative business. We like to provide a highly valuable service for our customers. What led to you making that business decision to just pass on to not pass on the cost, right? To swallow the cost?
Yeah, so it's to do with meeting our promise to our community and our customers. This is a real world problem. We experienced it ourselves, and so we saw the true need for it. And so when we built it, we decided to build it on that basis. And when it became a thing, we decided to make it available for everybody.
It's exciting times ahead for Innomate, so I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil.